Today, we're going to talk about something fundamental. We're not just talking about customer experience. No, we're going deeper. We're talking about how memories are actually built, how they're stored, and how they define our relationship with, well, with everything, from a 2-week vacation to a 2-minute app interaction. By the end of this, we're going to be memory architects. Okay, let's dive in. I want you to really think about this for a second. Picture it. You've just had the trip of a lifetime, 14 days of just absolute bliss. But then, that very last day is a complete disaster. You get home, you're exhausted, you're frustrated, and a friend calls and asks that simple question. So, how was the trip? What's your gut reaction? What do you say? You know, the reality of that trip was 13 incredible days and only one terrible one. If you were doing the math, the trip was, overwhelmingly positive. But that's not how our minds work, is it? Your memory, it doesn't run the numbers, it doesn't calculate some weighted average. You'll probably say, oh, it was a nightmare, or you are not going to believe what happened at the end. The entire 2-week experience gets overwritten by the memory of its final, awful moments. And this right here leads us to a huge and honestly an often fatal business mistake. It's something we call the average experience fallacy. It's this belief that if you just make every little part of your service good enough or satisfactory, that you've won. It's the idea that your customers are adding up all the little moments and remembering the average. And I'm telling you, that is fundamentally neurologically wrong. This brings us to a really powerful way to think about it. Your customer's brain, it is not a camcorder, okay? It's not recording every single second in perfect, high-fidelity detail. It's more like a storyteller, or maybe a movie director, who is piecing together a highlight reel of the experience. And just like any good director, it knows a story isn't defined by its running time, but by its most powerful scenes. The human brain just isn't built to average an experience. So here's how we're going to break all this down. First, we'll dig into the memory paradox. Then we'll look at the science that brought about the end of average. After that, we'll pop the hood on the Affective Memory Engine, understand the psychology of the brain's highlight reel, and then, the really important part, we'll lay out a framework for architecting a legacy. And we'll wrap it all up with the core idea pulling toward value. All right, let's start with that central mystery, the one from our vacation example. How can the memory of an event be so radically different from the event itself? Well, to get it, you have to understand that all of us, we're essentially two different selves living inside one body. On one hand, you've got the experiencing self. This is the part of you living completely in the now. It processes life second by second, asking things like, how do I feel right now? But on the other hand, there's the remembering self. And this one's the storyteller. It's the one that looks back, builds the narrative, and decides what the whole experience actually meant. It asks, so how was it overall? Now here's the kicker. The remembering self is the one in charge of all your future decisions. And these two selves, they often don't agree at all. And this conflict between our two selves wasn't just some philosophical idea. It actually led to a groundbreaking scientific discovery that completely upended how we understand human decision-making. It really was the beginning of the end for our obsession with the average. So back in the mid-20th century, psychologists stumbled upon this bizarre and incredibly powerful cognitive bias. They called it duration neglect. Now, just let that sink in for a second. The actual length of an experience, how long it goes on, has almost no impact on how we remember it. So whether a painful procedure lasts for 60 seconds or for 10 minutes, it doesn't really change our memory of how bad it was. This idea just shattered the old economic theories of rational utility, which always assumed that more pain for more time was obviously worse. Turns out, not so much. Let's make this real. Take a look at these two experiences. So experience A is a short, sharp burst of intense pain. Let's call it an 8 out of 10. Now, experience B is much, much longer, but the pain is only a 4 out of 10. So logically, the total amount of pain in experience B is way greater, right? Simply because it lasts so much longer. So the big question is, which one does our remembering self, our inner storyteller, label as the worst experience? The one with the higher total amount of suffering, or the one with that single, more intense moment? It's kind of crazy, but it's experience A, the shorter, more intense one. The brain's highlight reel latches onto that peak intensity, that 8 out of 10 moment, and it uses that single data point to write the story for the entire event. The duration, completely neglected. The total suffering, totally ignored. It's the peak that matters. Now, this academic discovery from way back when has massive implications for us right now. You see, as we got into the 2020s, technology made everything feel so smooth and frictionless. Good service just became the baseline. It became a commodity. But here's the problem. As all the friction disappeared, so did the memory. Brands started to become invisible because they were too smooth. They didn't offer any peaks. And that's the moment the peak end rule went from being a cool psychological fact to an essential survival strategy for businesses. This really brings us to the challenge we all face today, and this quote just nails it. In a world that is flooded with satisfactory averages, the only way you can build real, lasting loyalty is to intentionally engineer extreme moments. Trying to compete by just being pretty good at everything, that's a losing game. It's just a race to the forgettable middle. And that's where brands become invisible. It's where they go to die. Okay, so if our brain ignores duration and doesn't care about averages, how in the world does it actually build a memory? Well, to get this, we need to stop thinking about a customer journey like it's some kind of linear map and start seeing it for what it is, a powerful machine. Let's take a look inside what's called the Affective Memory Engine. So let's pop the hood. This engine, this system inside our heads that creates all our lasting impressions, it doesn't even try to process everything. It works on a surprisingly simple and efficient system. It uses just 2 anchor points. It completely ignores the vast, mediocre middle, and it zeroes in on 2 very specific, very powerful data points that will end up defining the entire story. The first anchor is the peak. This is the single moment of maximum emotional intensity. Now, it could be a positive peak, a moment of triumph or relief or just unexpected delight. Think about that moment an app finally solves a problem you've been banging your head against for hours. But it can also be a negative peak, a moment of maximum frustration or confusion. For the brain's highlight reel, this single moment is the most important, most informative piece of data it gets from the entire experience. And the second anchor is the end. The final moments of any interaction carry a ton of extra weight. The end basically acts like an emotional summary for the whole event. So if the ending feels successful and easy, the brain tends to label the entire journey as success. But if the ending is abrupt or confusing or frustrating, that negative feeling taints the memory of everything that came before it. It's the brain's final judgment call. It's the last impression. So you put those 2 anchors together and they create what's called a retrospective valuation loop. When your remembering self looks back on something, it doesn't scan the whole timeline. Nope. It just pulls up the file for the peak, pulls up the file for the end, and then it kind of averages those 2 points to create the final story. So a mediocre middle with a brilliant peak and a satisfying end, that becomes a legendary memory. But a great overall experience with a frustrating peak or a weak ending, that becomes a story of failure. So we know what the brain does, right? It focuses on the peak and the end. But the real question is, why? I mean, why did our brains evolve to work this way? And the answer, it turns out, has everything to do with efficiency and survival. This all comes from something called the Snapshot heuristic. Our brains are, for lack of a better word, lazy, but in a good way. They evolved to save energy. Recording every single second of our lives would just be metabolically exhausting, and it would create a mountain of useless data. So the brain takes shortcuts. It samples an experience by taking snapshots of what it decides are the most critical moments. The peak moment? That's crucial because it's survival data. What was the most dangerous part of that hunt? Or what was the most rewarding part? And the end. That's crucial because it tells us the final outcome. Did we get away? Are we safe now? And this gets combined with another powerful bias, the recency effect. Our brains just naturally give more weight to the most recent information they've processed. A strong positive final impression can literally rewrite the memory of a difficult or painful journey that came before it. So when you combine the intensity of the peak with the finality of the recency effect, well, you create a powerful psychological lock that defines that memory forever. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about tricking people or finding some loophole in human psychology. It's about a deep, respectful understanding of a fundamental human truth. We think we live our lives in the present moment, right? Through our experiencing self, but we don't. Not really. We live in our memories. All our future decisions, who to trust, where to shop, what to buy again, they are all governed by the stories our remembering self tells us. And understanding this is the first real step to building relationships that actually last. Okay, so we've covered the theory, the science, and the psychology. Now we get to the most important part. How do we actually use this? How do we go from just understanding this rule to mastering it? Let's build the framework for becoming a true memory architect. The most important thing here is a shift in mindset. You have to stop thinking like a manager who's always trying to optimize every little detail for average efficiency. Instead, you have to start thinking like a memory architect, someone who focuses their resources on the moments that will actually be remembered, the moments that will define the legacy of the entire interaction. So this framework, this path to becoming a memory architect, has 4 key actions. We're going to walk through each one. First, you have to isolate the hero moment. Second, you must meticulously engineer the exit. Third, you've got to salvage the troughs, those unavoidable low points. And finally, you have to learn to audit your entire process through the lens of duration neglect. Let's really dig into step 1, isolate the hero moment. This means you have to change the fundamental question you're asking. Stop asking, how can we make this whole process 5% better? That's average thinking. Start asking, where is the emotional spike? Where is that single moment our customer feels the most powerful, the most relieved, the most delighted? This is what we call peak injection. So for a project management tool, the hero moment isn't checking off the 100th little task. It's the big moment you mark an entire project as complete. Your job is to find that moment and amplify it. You don't just show a check mark. You unleash a cascade of digital confetti. You play a triumphant sound. Slack is a master of this. When you clear all your notifications, it gives you that tiny, delightful, you're all caught up message. It's a manufactured peak that turns a chore into a small win. Think about video games. When you level up, the whole screen celebrates with you. That's a hero moment. Your job is to find that moment in your experience and pour your resources into making it unforgettable. Step 2 is just as important. Engineer the exit. Most companies treat their final touchpoints like functional afterthoughts, a boring order confirmed page, or a generic task complete pop-up. This is a massive missed opportunity to provide what's called a terminal uplift. Think about the end of a great movie. It doesn't just cut to black, it gives you a satisfying resolution. Your order confirmed page shouldn't just be a digital receipt. MailChimp is famous for this. After you send a big email campaign, their mascot, a monkey, sweats nervously and then gives you a high five. That's a terminal uplift. It's an emotional reward that celebrates your success with you. Another great example is travel apps. After you book a flight, some of them show you beautiful photos of your destination or a countdown clock, building that sense of anticipation. They are transforming a boring, transactional end into an exciting, emotional beginning. The whole goal is to make that final impression a feeling of accomplishment, a confirmation that the entire journey was worth it. Okay, but what about the bad moments? Every experience has them. That's step 3, salvage the troughs. Every journey has unavoidable points of friction. A long loading screen, a complicated form, a 404 error page. The normal instinct is just to make them work. But the memory architect's approach is different. The key is to neutralize that negative peak by immediately following it with a micro peak. A perfect example is the 404 page not found error. A bad one just says error. A good one? It's an opportunity. So many websites now use humor or clever illustrations on their 404 pages. That small moment of unexpected delight, that micro peak, it doesn't erase the frustration of the broken link, but it washes out the memory of it. It changes the story from this website is broken to, this website has personality, even when things go wrong. You are strategically placing a small positive moment right after a negative one to reframe the memory. And finally, step 4, audit for duration neglect. This requires a fundamental shift in how you spend your time and money. Go through your entire customer journey and ask yourself, are we spending our budget optimizing the length of this experience or the memory of it? A bank, for instance, might spend millions to shave 10 seconds off their online mortgage application. A memory architect would ask, is that really where the memory is being made? Or is the memory formed in that frustrating peak moment when a user can't upload a document? Or at the anticlimactic end when they just get a generic confirmation email? Instead of shaving off those 10 seconds that no one will ever remember, you reallocate that budget to create a brilliant, celebratory congratulations, you're approved screen, complete with a clear guide on what's next. It's about focusing your talent on the moments that actually build the legacy of the experience. And all this brings us to the core insight, the peak end rule. It's more than just a psychological quirk, and it's more than just a marketing tactic. It's really a bridge between the cold, hard data of behavioral science and the warm, complex reality of human connection. Look, the math is undeniable. The data shows that engineering better peaks and more satisfying ends directly leads to higher retention, higher customer lifetime value, lower churn, all the good stuff. That's the business case. But the human truth behind it all is far simpler, and I think far more profound. At our core, as people, we just want to feel something. We want to know that our time, our energy, our attention, that it mattered. When you consciously design for the peak in the end, you're sending a powerful message. You're proving that you understand your customer is a person, not just a user ID. You're proving that you respect their most valuable asset, their memory. Ultimately, this changes how we should even think about growth. Growth isn't some linear process of pushing people through a funnel. It's a learned behavior. It's earned by creating memories so powerful and so positive that people choose to come back on their own. The best marketing, the best brands, they don't push. They create value so distinct, so memorable at its peak, and so satisfying at its end, that it pulls people toward it again and again.